How about a look at another American car? You know, in the automobile business, it used to take a certain amount of daring to be successful. If you really were going to come out with a new model, it usually meant an enormous risk. You either had to set a new trend or buck an old one. You can never just go with the flow. But for years, the executives at the Ford Motor Company were doing just that. Until now, that is. Now they're once again dipping heavily into the risk-taking well. Swoopy new styling and oodles of horsepower are the new trends in our current respite between oil shortages. But Ford is still a loner in other ways. They've resisted following GM and Chrysler in developing big front-wheel drive family sedans. And that's where our next road test subject joins the fray. Out in the front lines is this downsized rear-wheel drive 1983 Ford LTD. Except for the blue oval and the egg crate grille, there's not a whole lot in common between this four-door sedan or its wagon companion and those big Fords of old. Now true, the new LTD does share the same chassis as the Fairmont and Granada, but the similarities end there. Its 3,100 pounds makes it moderately trim, as is its base price at $7,800, though our Bro model here came in at $11,500. But what does the new LTD offer that's really new?
Well, if you look at the new LTD as a family sedan with no sporting pretensions, you find a lot of new combinations. Ford has managed to combine the soft boulevard ride of LTD ancestors with quick steering and competent road manners of less boring cars. Under the hood lies another surprise. When was the last time you could order an LTD with a four-cylinder engine or manual transmission? Never, as a matter of fact. Our car, though, has the standard 2.3-liter overhead cam 4 mated to a 3-speed automatic, a more obvious combination for most buyers. It produces EPA fuel economy ratings of 21 city, 31 highway, and 24 in real life. And such a big engine bay for such a small power plant. The engine is so far towards the rear that an electric fan is used to cool the radiator. A nice byproduct of that arrangement is superior access for all front-of-the-engine maintenance. And styling. Can you combine a family cargo box with dramatic aerodynamics? Apparently, yes. A slanted front end with still too much chrome flows up to and over one of the steepest rakes in production windshields, back over an 8-window greenhouse to a trunk lid that looks like it has a bit of a spoiler built in. This is definitely not the square look of earlier LTDs. The expensive-looking European-like interior has a few things going for it, too. Standard split front seats are cushy and comfortable, yet are fully reclinable and offer above-average lower back and side bolster support. Yet the dash looks American expensive, as plastic wood abounds. Actually, the entire assembly comes from the more upmarket Thunderbird, complete with a vertical console for both the ventilation controls and radio. Gauges are of the simplest variety, with a bevy of overly bright warning lights. A spiffier electronic package, also from the T-Bird, is an option. Entrance, front or rear, is easy. Once inside, you'll find plenty of head, foot, and leg room for 4 big adults and 1 not so big. The driveline hump requires the middle rear passenger to be of junior size. On the inside was where we found the only 2 fit and finish problems with the LTD, a squeaking dash panel and good-looking, fine-working, but poor-fitting power seat controls. Now, those problems are easily fixed, but the trunk design is something else. It is high, wide, and handsomely finished, but the shape is a bit strange and allows the top-mounted spare tire to take up far too much room. But at least you sure won't have to take up more than your share of room on the open highway. Despite soft springs and inherent body roll, the LTD made impressive work of our pylon test. The power rack and pinion steering unit felt good and not too light. In fact, the LTD is far more maneuverable than most of its potential owners will be prepared for. While the front end has expected plowing understeer, the back end can come around when the suspension rolls to its stops. Yet we found overall handling extremely predictable, a good combination for this traditional family sedan. The power disc drum brakes also performed well. Only from 55 miles per hour did we find any quirks. The sometimes touchy pedal did allow rear-end lockup and hop. And the smooth-riding springs produced deep nose diving and a tail high in the air, yet no rear-end swing around. Stops averaged a brief 124 feet, a very good performance. The The shortest stop was 121 feet, with only 128 feet for the longest. About the only thing we did find long on the LTD was the turning circle. We expected a bit less than its 40 feet. At this point, a word about acceleration seems in order. We picked the standard four-banger for a reason. Just how well could the LTD go with such a small power plant? Well, it sure felt better than a 16-second time from 0 to 60 would indicate. In fact, over our 40 to 55 mile per hour passing test, the LTD's time of 6.2 seconds, while again slow, was 0.8 of a second better than the V6-powered Granada we tested last year. Power is decidedly mid-ranged. You don't get much for quick starts or interstate pullaways. Thus, a very slow 11-second excursion over our 500-foot on-ramp course was compensated by a more acceptable speed of 52 miles per hour. But when all was said and done, just how well did our testing crew like the leaner look of the LTD?
I never thought I could love a family sedan, but in ride, handling, creature comfort, roominess, and most of all styling, I think Ford has done a hell of a job.
After driving this car on and off for 2 weeks, I found it to be wonderful for long Sunday afternoon rides. But the kids better take it easy on the seats, for the fabric doesn't look very durable.
I showed this car to my parents, who are full-size LTD aficionados, and they really like it. But Dad and I agree that for power, we prefer either the 3.3-liter inline six-cylinder or 3.8-liter V6 with the 4-speed automatic overdrive.
True, the LTD isn't really a car for those who like a lot of sport in their driving. That's not the point of this car. But if you're part of the average American family, and you're maybe a bit timid about the complexities of front-wheel drive, then the 1983 Ford LTD is a good way to thoroughly enjoy the future, and you don't have to forget the better lessons of the past.